Anybody say anything in the chat? Okay. If not, the thing we have to remember is that we all have different personalities. And as we all have different personalities, there's different ways we'll deal with things in terms of moving forward. The irony is there's not a right or wrong answer because you have to feel comfortable with what you're doing, but there are different things that can happen with each one of these scenarios as we move forward. I'm going to share a story with you. I was sitting in the boardroom around the table with a lot of executives, and I had mentioned some ideas of things that I thought we could do. About 15 minutes later, a man repeated the exact same thing I did. And here was my response. I said to him, I said, Joe, you know what? That's an excellent idea. Thanks for reiterating my thoughts again. Because I wanted him to know, and I wanted them to know, A, I recognize that you had already said something, but B, it was what I said, and that it was, even though he repeated it, so that it wouldn't be forgotten. But that's my personality. That's what I wanted to do in order to change the narrative in the room. So those of you that want to speak up and address it with a colleague, that's great because you're doing it one-on-one, you're having a conversation. There are those that prefer a manager. Now, the downside, the other side to that is a manager may say, did you speak to this colleague before? Have you tried to resolve it on your own? So always think that they're going to be thinking about the way that you resolve conflict as well. Building alliances with other team members is great because you can get other people to carry glasses of water for you. But just recognize they may not drink that water at the time you need them to when you're in that meeting. So nothing wrong with doing that, but there are things that may or may not happen. And then when you say let it go, if you are the type of person that you can let things go and it doesn't bother you want to keep going, that's fine. But if it eats at you and you know when it's bothering you in your gut, it's like, that really bothered me what happened today in that meeting, and it's really eating at me at what I'm doing, that's when it's a matter of the fact of being able to say that I'm not comfortable. So the other thing that we have to keep in mind when we're in these kinds of scenarios, understand how politics works in your environment. Now, everywhere is politics. Some are just more extreme than others, but we got politics everywhere. And you have sub-politics within politics. When you're in the company, they have one vision. You may be in a department with a different leader, and they're cultivating another one. So understand what that looks like. And I have a number of people ask me, well, how do you know what's going on with politics? I'm going to give you a few clues to think about. It's the verbals, it's the nonverbals, and it's watching who ultimately makes the decision and has the power. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I have, where you can be working with someone that has a very high title, and you believe they carry all the power. At the end of the day, it's not them. Their executive assistant knows everything inside and out, and she's an influencer, a high influencer. And she's the one that really is doing more of the control and some of the things than he was. So understand how things are made. Observations is the way you're going to do it, and observing behavior. The other thing is understanding your communication style and how assertive you are or not aggressive, but assertive in terms of moving forward, and then building those alliances and finding other people who may also be able to help you as you're dealing with this situation. So let's go to another one as we continue to move forward, and that's developing our interpretive skills. When I talked about observing behavior and watching how people do things and understanding the tone they're using, the communication style they're using, the way that they're engaging becomes important as you're trying to understand even more about your environment. What's accepted, what's not accepted. What are people really moving forward to? What are they not? Now, that does not mean don't be authentically you. That is not what I'm saying. You should always be authentic. And you need to be in an environment where you can be authentic. But sometimes we can modify our behavior and still be authentic as to who we are. But that's what's required within that environment. So keep that in mind. That also should let you know if you're in the right fit in terms of a place culturally and politically because of being authentic, or having the ability to be authentic or not. Okay, next thing, listen actively. A lot of times you will get clues about what's going on in a conversation if you just listen and observe. And it's not so much listening as it's the words that they use, but it's also the words they're not using. You know, a lot of times when we say, oh, that's just corporate speak, they just gave them a corporate line, everybody's saying the same line, right? And it's so that they're consistent and every leader is on the same page. But the words that are in between there that aren't really being spoken are saying something. So when we talk about being politically correct in our language, that's what we're talking about, but there are means. Understand the power structure, the influencers who's not, as I talked about, and lastly but not least, we all know feedback is a gift. Get feedback from others to ensure that the way that you're interpreting, the way the things that you're responding to is been, is beneficial, and that anything you may correct is corrected. As we know, feedback is a gift. Somebody can give you feedback. You say, thank you very much. And you can take it, internalize it, say, yep, I agree with that. I'm going to change it. Somebody can give you feedback. You say, thank you very much. You internalize it and say, I understood what they said, but I like who I am. And this is just how I'm going to be. Your choice, your path, your growth, your choice. Here's the second scenario. So James is a project manager and constantly exceeds performance targets. Over the past 5 years, despite his accomplishment, James has not received any significant promotions or pay raises. He feels frustrated and stuck and wants to approach his boss about career advancement opportunities without appearing impatient or ungrateful. I'm sure a number of us have been in this position. So now let's talk about how we would approach James' situation and what this looks like. I can imagine a number of you have found yourself in this situation. I'm ready. I'm ready for the next step. I'm not advancing. I'm not moving. I'm not getting pay increases. I'm not understanding all of that. And it's hard. It's hard to continue to exist when it's like, I've worked so hard. I'm giving you so much in terms of moving forward. And I really, really want to see this happen. So here are results. Request a meeting with the boss and be direct about his career desires. Look for new opportunities within a company. Enhance your skills and reapply for a promotion, or start looking for a new job outside of the company. Now, again, all of this is going to fit what you're comfortable with. But there are two sides to every coin, as we know, when we begin to make choices. And there's a cost to every choice and decision that we make. So when you go in and talk to your boss and being direct, we have to be direct, but be direct with facts. Yes, I performed at this level. I've given the business this result. This is what I was asked to do and how I've gone over and beyond. Understanding the landscape. And when I say the landscape of the facts, that's what kind of market we're in, what kind of industry they're in. Are there any challenges budget-wise? What does that mean? Are they not promoting anybody? Are promotions just on freeze at this moment? Really understand the business underneath it. So when you go in the talk, you have grounds that say, look, we've improved in these areas. This is what I've done to contribute. This is where it's at. I truly believe that I am ready for this. If not, what am I missing? Because your leader should always be able to give you that so that you can fill those gaps as you move forward. Some people will say, no, I love the company. It's just this department I don't want to be in. I want to go somewhere else. It's never out of the realm to enhance your skills. We should consistently always be enhancing our skills and thinking about your dream, your vision of where you want to go. It's nobody else's. You're here to satisfy your dream. So whatever those things are that you need to do to get more skill sets that you want to do, that you're passionate about continuing to do. And then some people say, I just want to go outside of the job to do that. So make sure that you are articulating in the interest of the business of the value you've given. Make sure that in your discussions that you understand what's required for where you want to be. And that requirement says, what are the soft skills? They're just as important. What are the hard skills that are there? What are they asking for? How much do I meet of this criteria? How much growth would I have? And just because you may not have 100% does not mean you can't be promoted. But what we have to make sure of is the 20% where you need that growth is not at a point where they are instantaneously in urgency saying, I got to have this capability. I cannot wait. I'm hiring for this position because I need them to come in with the minimum of this to move forward. I don't have the opportunity to train to let them go to do the next thing. But like I said, know what the business requirement is for that job. That will help you to determine that. But doesn't mean you have to have 100% of everything that's there. You need to have the 80% of the priority that that leader is requiring. And you get that by not only understanding the job description, but also talking to other people and understanding what the department does, et cetera, and moving forward. I'm going to pause for a minute. Any questions there? You can put them in the chat.
Vicki, I don't see questions in the chat to this point.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Please feel free to type in your questions in the chat.
Okay. So now let's talk about strategic decision making. Now, one of the things that I believe in is that, you know how many times we as employees, we go and do a SWOT for our department, we go and do it for the company, we do it for everybody else. We talk about what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are, how we're going to move forward. Guess what? Do one for yourself. Be truthful with yourself. Look at where your strengths are. Look at where your weaknesses are. And your opportunities can also offset your weaknesses, right? What opportunities do I have to actually offset some of this in terms of moving forward? What opportunities am I not taking advantage of? And then what are any threats out there, right? Now, I'll tell you why this is extremely important. It is no secret, unfortunately, that it's usually the fourth quarter of the year when companies are reassessing, looking where they're going for the next fiscal year, looking at what's happening, and they make org changes. And org changes can mean we get displacements, right? Now, the benefit to the company, they can take the write-off that quarter, blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is that you get displacements. Well, when you have a number of people out there looking for a job, we now have intensified competition. Nothing replaces the individual of a relationship in your network to help you. But every company requires that you apply online, right? So it's like your social security number, you apply and you hope that you're in the realm of the resumes that they pick before they cut it off in terms of moving forward. It is critical that you do this first, because doing this will allow you to use the right words in your resumes that you're updating, your LinkedIn that you're updating, things that you're actually showing. I've done this. I can do this. I'm good at this. And this is the value I bring that you need me. You know, I always say, decisions, your path, your growth. And it's all about where you want to grow. And growing to do that, we all hear about these SMART goals. Make sure your goals are ones that you can achieve and get to. And there's nothing wrong with having stair steps of goals. Phase 1, I want to get here. Phase 2, I want to get here. Phase 3, I want to get here. And this is how I'm going to hold myself accountable for getting there. And make sure that those goals are also relevant to what you're passionate about so it makes sense to you. And then being able at the very end, when you're beginning to make a decision as to what do I do? Do I stay? Do I go? Do I get a promotion? Do I get skills? What do I do? Look at that decision matrix. Now, I'll give you another tip that I like to tell a lot of people to do because we don't take the time to do it because we're so busy working for everybody else. Take a sheet of paper out, and on the front side of the sheet of paper, put down every value that you have personally, professionally, everything you need to be the happiest you as possible. On the back side of that sheet of paper, write down everything that is just your deal breakers. I can't work in this environment. I can't do this. I don't want to subject myself to this. I'm not interested in doing this. These are the things that are not on my values. I don't want to be a part of. Then I want you to go back and prioritize the side that you had your values on. What's first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And the reason this is important is because when you get ready to look for a job and you're starting to ask questions about the culture, the environment, you've already assessed what your values are, what's most important. You know which ones you need to run fast from and which ones you want to run quickly to, and what that looks like. You've also thought about your personal dynamics in doing it. If I take this job, there's a price we pay for decisions, good or bad, because I can take this job and it'd be great. But the sacrifice I'm going to give is I'm going to have to give up 2 hours a day to do X, Y, and Z with my family. Do I want to do that? Or I'm going to make a decision to go and take this class to get skills, but now it means I don't get an hour with my significant other because I need that time to study. So everything has a price that you need to assess. Make sure you include that as you continue to look at your decision matrix and what you're doing and moving forward and what's going to help you with the satisfaction, your growth, and your work-life balance. So here's the third scenario. I think this is the last one, the last scenario. So this is about work-life balance. And I know we talk about this till we're blue in the face, about how do we get this balance. So let's talk about it a little bit. Meet Emily, a senior director who is struggling to maintain a healthy work-life balance. She often works late nights and weekends, leaving with little time for her family and personal interests. Emily fears that if she doesn't find a solution soon, it will lead to burnout and affect her performance. So how would you manage work-life balance in this scenario? Okay, give a few more minutes.
Vicki, we do have a comment that says, this one is tough. I want to say all of the above.
Understood. But that's the power of making choices, being able to say priorities. Understood. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And thank you for your honesty, for saying that, and your authenticity, because that is the truth a lot of times as we continue to move forward and making those decisions and what they look like. So when we begin to think about work-life balance, first of all, everybody has their own definition of work-life balance. Let's start there. I'm going to share a story with you. It's true that I had no idea the impact of work-life balance when it came to this. I was getting a 360 done, and everybody in my team was like, oh, we love her, blah, blah, blah. She's great. She's a good leader, this, that, and the other. But the work life, oh my gosh, it's working all the time. And they were observing my behavior. Well, I was a leader. I didn't get paid to have to go to work. paid to have fun. I love what I did. So I might be on at 4 o'clock in the morning, sitting, doing this and putting this in, or at late at 7 or 8 o'clock. But I never asked them to do that. But they were watching and observing my behavior, seeing the amount of influence and things that I could do. And they were like, well, we got to work like that to do it as well. So I had to set my people down and say, wait a minute. First of all, thank you for the gift of feedback. I truly appreciate it. I will take it, absorb it, and move accordingly. But I want to bring up one thing. I noticed you all are talking about my work. I need you to understand, I have never, ever asked you to work the hours I work. So let me be really clear. You don't have to work like I work to make it. I do it because I love it and I'm passionate about it. But they were observing that behavior. So I tell you that story because when we begin to think about focused work, we all have to think about how we work individually and staying to the boundaries of what works for us. So whether that's on your calendar, that from 7 a.m. to 8:15, I'm going to be in exercise class, and that's just what I'm going to do. That everybody knows. So they know if they need to contact me, I'm not going to be available from 7 to 8:15 because I'm going to be in exercise class. And then from 8 until 11 is my time where I do emails, my strategy, my whatever. I'm going to have meetings only in the afternoons on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm going to have them all day on Tuesday and meetings in the mornings here and there. You have to decide what that focus time is for you, understanding the culture that you're working within. What are their working hours? What are they? What's the day that is expected and your job? So by all means, get focus hours, but make sure you're able to deliver on your job. You know, as a leader, I would always say, I don't care when you do it, just get it done and get it done with excellent quality, right? But you're going to have to show what that focus means. Delegating tasks is also another one. The things you don't have to do, delegate, because guess what? It's a learning opportunity for somebody else. And you know how we just talked about wanting to get promoted? Do you know one big reason why a lot of people, why their bosses stop them from getting promoted and say, I don't want them to move? It's because they did all the work and they're like, oh my God, you're going to leave a hole. So if you want to get promoted and move on, share your knowledge, share your information, share so others can grow to be able to do that. Because you have a growth path. So don't let your lack of delegation stop your ability to grow. Taking regular breaks and vacations. There are a number of people that say, you know what? I'm okay at the pay. I'm okay. If you don't give me a benefit, give me some more vacation days. Give me some more time off, because that's really what's important to me. I want that time. I want vacations. I want breaks. So these companies that offer unlimited PTO, that you take it for whatever you need, might be the right environment for you. You know, again, I can deliver. I'm doing what I need to do, but I can take vacations when I want to take vacations. So again, on that value sheet, that would be a high priority when you get ready to talk about whether it's internal promotions, other opportunities. You want to make sure what the standard is around that. And then discussing with your manager. You know, one of the things is that there's a lot of concern around this as we move forward. When we talk about discussing it with our managers and moving forward, is that, oh, I'm afraid if I tell my manager I'm going to be overloaded, I'm overworked, that they're going to take something away from me and I can't move forward. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to make that happen. One thing I always advise before you go into your manager's office talking about work-life balance, don't leave it to them to bring the solution. You bring solutions with you. If you leave it to them, you're leaving it open to all kinds of things that could happen. If you come in and thought about the strategy, you thought about the solutions and the benefits and how it's going to win, then you set it up for a premise of what that trajectory could potentially look like. So they don't have to go figure out a solution you've already thought about. So I encourage you to be able to do that when you need to talk to your manager. It is important to understand our signs of burnout. It's important that we take care of self-care. And again, self-care looks different for everybody. It's not the same. And that's the importance of setting those boundaries, understanding what's important, and then doing your time management. Now, I will tell you, it's, how many people really take a calendar and put down what they do every 30 minutes, every hour? Well, we don't have time to do that, right? But if we begin our work week, so I do this on Friday evenings when I was, at the end of my day, as I'm working, and I say, okay, what's on the calendar next week? What am I going to time block where? What do I have to make sure gets done? And I color code it for my time management. And then I stick to that. That is my time. That's what I'm doing. Those are the that's what I'm going to use as a strategy for that week to ensure I accomplish everything with quality, on time, et cetera, with those expectations being met. So make sure that you're using the right time management strategies that work for you, whatever they may be. And it's not a one size fits all. We all are unique individuals as we go.
Vicki, I do want to mention that you had a question, but you answered it earlier, and it was about how do you
what?
But I believe that was your point.
I didn't get the question. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Okay, so the question just got a little more specific. How would you handle if you've given suggestions on how best to manage the workload, but approvals for these implementations aren't given or the discussion never moves forward?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question. And let's talk a little bit about this because this becomes really, really important. And it's one of my sayings, so this is Vicki. Okay, this is truly Vicki speaking. One monkey don't stop no show. Okay, boss or otherwise, not one person stops my show. There are always strategies you can use that are around it. So if I am going in with suggestions that could work, and I've tied those suggestions to outcomes that my boss get measured on, and they begin to ignore them, I also make sure other people that are influencers around that also understand potential solutions to that problem as well. In terms so that they can help carry that glass of water at times to help you. There are people, rightly or wrongly, as leaders that are like, yeah, I hear you, but it's going to be my way or the highway. I get it. I get that that's real. I get that that happens. But if you allow that to be your stumbling block, you won't grow. So we go back to the scenario we talked before. Is there an opportunity where I need to do something different because I'm not in an environment that works? It's not working for me. I can't grow. I can't develop. No matter what I do, I get a stumbling block. So now let me do some self-assessments. Where am I in my life? Where am I in my career? What do I need to do to move myself forward? Okay. And I would let my boss know, this is Vicki again, just after years of working with many, many leaders, is to say, I need X, Y, and Z, and here's a solution that I thought we might be able to use. And my boss goes, yeah, I hear you, but I'm not sure. Then my question would be, okay, I understand you say you're not sure. I'd love to understand what's wrong with this solution and what other ideas do you have? Let them be on the hook too. What other ideas do you have? What's wrong with this so I can grow and learn? But what other ideas do you have to add to this? What is not giving you what you need? Seek to understand. Get more data and more information because it's only going to make you more powerful of understanding where they are mentally, emotionally, or where they're going in the company. So it becomes really important that we dig a little deeper. But again, one person can't stop you from growing. You have to have the self-discipline and motivation. Remember, motivation comes from within. I can provide a motivating environment, but you are the motivation. That motivation from within is going to guide you to what the right solution is for you at that time. Now, sometimes you may find yourself in a position where I really wanted to do this. The boss knew information you didn't know, couldn't tell you that, and that's why it wouldn't work. But those things usually come out in the end because eventually you understand what's going on within the department. But I would go to my boss and say that. I would say, look, I know I'm not privy to everything, but here's the problem that we need to solve. here are my ideas of what I was thinking about, how we could mitigate this situation to help you do A, B, C, and D. Because again, they're ultimately responsible to help you do A, B, C, and D. And if that manager says, oh, well, okay, I understand that they're not listening, then it's a matter of where are the gaps? What do you see is not working? What are your ideas on what we can do to hold them accountable? If the manager goes, oh, well, I understand, but for other reasons, there's a lot going on. I'm not sure that that's going to work. That's code word for I can't tell you what's really happening, and you need to let this go because we don't know everything, right? And remember, sometimes it's what people don't say as much as what it is of what they do say. And it's because as a leader, she's not allowed to. She or he is not able to say anything, so they can't move forward. And then the third option is that you do that evaluation and decide if that's the right environment and place for you in terms of moving forward. So thanks for that question. Did that answer your question?
I think it does. It's a question that was in the chat, so thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
No problem. No problem.
Yes.
All right. So when we talk about these takeaways and we talk about moving forward, your question fits right into one of the things I want us to always remember is about navigating that office politics. And it just exists. You can't erase it. You're not going to let it go. Everybody has it. Some people just more extreme than others. Some of it is environments of politics we like, politics we don't like, etc. But it's the environment. And politics of the environment is what sets the culture. So this is where I say cultural assessments are extremely important. If you're in an environment, making sure that you understand culturally how things are done, right? And what works and what doesn't work and why it works and why it doesn't work and how they actually operate. I mean, I have a client right now that I service, and we would be in a meeting and nobody raises their hand when we're talking around the world globally in a meeting. They just start shouting out. And I was like, how do y'all get anything done? This is crazy. And they said, oh, that's just our culture. If you want to say something, you got to make sure your voice is heard. So you got to come in and just start talking. I was like, wow, that's new. That's really new, right? But I had to learn to adapt to work with that client. But I eventually got that client to understand how it was creating a culture of combativeness, and we were continuously talking about the same thing over and over again. So you may allow it culturally, but you're spending so much money and wasting so much money by having the same conversations over and over. We're not moving as fast forward as we could. Eventually, those things started to change, but that was just the culture. That's the way it was, right? So it's really understanding how that works, and those go hand in hand because one sets the tone for the other. So make sure that as you're navigating within the office, you're cultivating relationships everywhere. Now, I have to say this. Don't cultivate this relationship with leaders above you and those that are above them in the hierarchy and think that's going to work. Let me tell you, some of the most powerful individuals are individual contributors. Some of the most powerful supporters that can help you are individual contributors. Even some of the, and I'll give you an example, some of the housekeeping people, the food people, the mail people can be your biggest supporter. I had an opportunity at one time where I was facing a major challenge, and the cleaning crew knew that I had a challenge, but knew nothing about my business. But she knew enough to put pieces together. Well, one day I was trying to find some information, and one day I came in my office and there were some things sitting on my desk. I said, where did this come from? It was the exact information I needed. I was like, oh my God, where did this come from? But I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't know who had done it. About 2 days later, she walked in and she said, I was emptying some trash, and I know you had mentioned this word about what you were working on. I thought this may be able to help you, so I left it for you. And it was the most powerful thing I ever could have had. But I said, why did you do that? She said, you've always been nice to me. You've always talked to me. You don't make me feel smaller. You're always there. So anything I could do to support. And I had no idea. I just knew you had said something about this and I thought it might help you. So my point is that you never know where that help is going to come from or what's needed. So please don't just make connections above you. Everybody has a strength and a power to play and can be important along your journey. And then maintaining that high level of professionalism as you go. The next thing is, as you begin to advance your career, your self-branding, how you want others to perceive you. You can perceive yourself one way as much as you want to, but if others don't perceive you that way, your brand is going to be by others and what they say. You want to change your brand, even if you got a business, even if you have a job. Start writing blogs, do things that are going to let people know you're an expert in the field you're in. Write articles out on LinkedIn and say, I'm in this area, here's what I've learned. And get yourself known out there so that your sphere of influence is not limited by the walls in which you work or just the industry in which you know people, but can be known for yourself globally. So, get involved in the content that's important to you as you continue to move forward. And identify with your personal board of directors. We've heard a lot about that, but that personal board of directors are not ones that are just going to agree with you, but they're ones that it's your safe space and they want to see you grow and develop and to move forward, and we'll give you honest feedback. Last, in maintaining work-life balance, make sure that you implement what works for you. And I always say to have mindful moments, whatever that means. There are times before I get ready to do a presentation, and today was one of them. I sat in my chair and I was breathing 10 times before I got ready to do it. I've done this presentation 1,000 times, but you always want to give your best. You always want to do your best because you never know what could go right or wrong. Technology had a problem. I could have freaked out. I didn't, because I had gotten my center together and I was breathing and I said, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. So it's important for you to do what works for you, but taking breathing moments, taking short walks, walking away from the office when things get tense, go take a walk to the bathroom, come back, give yourself time to cool off, whatever that may be. The other thing is to, as you're prioritizing, don't forget to keep in mind your time zones and things like that, even at home. I'm not going to look at my phone from 9 p.m. on. So if you send me something after 9, I'm not looking at it. 8 p.m. on, whatever that may be, and communicate so others are aware. So I'd like to open up the floor for any Q&A, any questions that you may have, and in the chat.
I don't see any new questions in the chat, but please feel free to type in questions in the chat, or you can also come off mute and ask your question. I see. Will you provide this deck? Can you share this deck with us, Vicki, and we can send it out? Okay.
Yes,
perfect.
I will share the deck with you in terms of moving forward. My pleasure to do so. And I will, and I usually send these out as a PDF. I would encourage anybody that would like to have an opportunity for a conversation, please get in touch with me. I'd love to chat with you. Right? As you are going through life's transitions, time transitions, career transitions, challenges with people losing jobs, challenges with people trying to find jobs, things like that. If you want to reach out, I'm here to serve. That's all I want to do. And I want to thank you all so much for the opportunity to share some of the knowledge with you. And I pray that you got at least one thing, because if you got one thing, it was all worth every bit of time, energy, and effort to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicki. I thought it was a fantastic session, and thank you all for attending today. We'll send a follow-up email with the survey to hear your thoughts about today's event, also the link to the recording and the slides that Vicki offered to share as well. So thank you all for taking time on your Wednesday during your lunch break to hear from this fearless leader.
Sherry, there is one question and one hand up. Do you want to ask your question? Is it Tamika Wood? Okay, I can read it off really quick, or we can also send it in the email, send an email back with the response to the question. But if we have a couple of minutes, it says, I have been in the telecommunication industry for over 30 years, and I have seen a lot of changes and have gained a lot of experience. How do I present the last 30 years of my resume without sounding old?
I think you're muted, Vicki.
Sorry about that. We can talk about that. I actually have a client that I just got her a new job in that same way. And a lot of it has to deal with how you phrase your time and your strategy of specifics. You don't have to name every single thing, and it's not about sounding old, it's about results. So what we have to do is, and I got more than 30 years experience, so I can tell you, been there, did that, done that, and I understand. But it's really about how you phrase strategically. It's about how you outline your resume in terms of the content and the variations of the growth. So you can't be there 30 years and not have grown and learned something. So if you started here and you had the opportunity to get a result, by the time you get here, you're going to be at a much higher B result in terms of moving forward. So we want to stick to the strategic highest level, the outcomes of what you have done, and the benefit to the business with each of those outcomes as you move forward. And all of them are going to be in the focus area of where you want to go and work. Remember that. It's about the future. So I'm just talking, I got all these tools in my toolbox, but now I can go to the future with how I'm going to be able to use these tools. I always say, fill your toolbox with as many tools as you can. So when you get to the next construction site, you got all the tools you need to build. So continue to, it's all in that phrasing. It's all in how you label it. And if you reach out, I'd be more than happy to help.
Vicki, if I could sneak one more question in here, since it's in the
Absolutely.
box.
I'm enjoying this. This is my fun part.
Have you ever experienced a time where a manager downplays your achievements simply because they aren't involved in the day-to-day hustle? They don't realize what a big help your work has been to others, and how would you respectfully but the remarks emphasizing the importance of what you've accomplished?
Yes, I have sat in that seat where they did not notice. Remember when I said others carry your glass of water? The ones whom you have helped and the ones that you have done things for in your communication and working with them is you can send, and I do this. I even do this and I'll do it today. I will send a reply email, and this is what I will say. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve you in this capacity of X. I hope that people got at least one thing out of this session that was practical, useful, that will help them grow and develop. That's what I will say. You can always say to somebody else, thank you so much for working with me on such and such. I enjoyed helping you do A, B, and C, blah, 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 blah. And you might say, why do I do that? Because when they reply and they say, it was great, thank you, you send it to your manager. Keep records of everything in writing you have. So you're beginning to show value. That's one way. The second way is that when you are working in that environment and you're helping someone, when people are talking about your help, they talk about your brand even when you aren't there. You just want to make sure they're talking about the brand to the right people. So make sure that, and this is where your board of directors can help. So I got a board of directors, they're connected everywhere. And I can talk to them and say, I am so proud. I got such and such done, but I need to get my story out. Your board of directors invested in you. Let them go carry your story. So we have to remember there's so many different ways, but we just got to be creative and think about it. Remember, no one person stops a show. There's always a way around it. Always. We may not like how long it takes. We may not like the way we have to do it, but there's always a ways around it. I hope that helps.
Thank you for answering those questions. Okay, now that is it in the chat. I'll just turn it back to you, Sherry.
Thank you. That's really, I mean, that's really all that I had, is keep an eye out on your email. I'll make sure to get it out on Friday. And thank you again, Vicki. Always a pleasure to have you. Absolutely great.
Well, thank you so much. You all have a fantastic, beautiful rest of your week. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank
Bye.
you.